The year is 1992, and HBO's popular stand-up show, The Def Comedy Jam, is recording its third episode. A little-known 35-year-old comic named Bernie Mac is nervously waiting backstage to perform his comedy routine. The show is notorious for one thing: its hostile crowd. That day, the audience had already booed a comedian off the stage, also forcing another comedian to walk off after bombing on stage. As an anxious Bernie Mac was watching this unfold, he grew angry. When the show host, Martin Lawrence, came backstage during the boos, Bernie approached him and demanded he do something to contain the crowd. Martin Lawrence, stern and unflinching, turned to him and said, "If you can't handle the hostility, then you shouldn't be here."
And after the next two got booed, Bernie was backstage pacing like, "Yo, Martin, do something. This ain't right. This ain't the Apollo." And Martin turned and said, "If you can't handle it, you shouldn't be here."
No.
Yes, sir.
That's what Martin told Bernie
Yes,
Mac?
sir.
Those words struck Bernie, and he decided to take the bull by the horns. As Martin introduced him, a determined Bernie Mac took the stage with one clear message to the hostile crowd.
"I ain't scared of you motherfuckers. I'm gonna tell you something straight off the motherfucking press."
He went on to deliver a top-shelf performance, coordinating seamlessly with the DJ, and the crowd loved him. Just like that, Bernie became a sensational figure, paving the way for him to become the ultimate king of comedy. His legacy was built on the authenticity and fearlessness with which he approached his craft. He was real, he was legit, traits that made him a fan favorite, but also an enemy among envious fellow comedians. It was often said that once Bernie hit the stage, you forgot about the other comedians who came before or after him. On top of this, his free spirit made him difficult to control, a quality the industry never takes lightly. So when he died at the young age of 50 in 2008, it caused a stir worldwide, with many believing there was more than meets the eye.
Comedian Bernie Mac has died. He was 50 years old. He was suffering from a lung condition called sarcoidosis, which many of us probably haven't heard until this morning.
It's sad that he died so young. I'm 39, and 50, that's a young age, man.
What really happened? Do the wild allegations hold any weight? Before diving deep into these theories, let's first explore how Bernie Mac came to be considered a threat in the industry, and the hurdles he had to overcome to become who he was. This is the untold story of Bernie Mac. Bernard Jeffrey McCullough was born on October 5, 1957, on the south side of Chicago in the Woodlawn area, as the second child of Mary McCullough and Jeffrey Harrison. His father left the family when Bernie was just a little boy. Bernie's mother worked as a supervisor in a hospital and managed to share their tiny house with Bernie's grandparents and other relatives. However, the house was soon torn down after the city deemed the neighborhood unsafe. This forced the McCulloughs to move to Chicago's gang-ridden Englewood community, where they lived in an apartment above the Burning Bush Baptist Church, where Bernie's grandfather served as a deacon. Bernie began his schooling at Winworth Elementary School, where he was known to be a shy kid. One night, when he was around 6 years old, he walked into the living room to find his mother crying. When he inquired about the issue, she told him it was nothing, likely to shield a young Bernie from the problem. In an attempt to comfort her, Bernie sat on his mother's lap as they watched TV. Bill Cosby was performing on The Ed Sullivan Show. His performance was so magical that Bernie's crying mother started laughing. Seeing the joy in her smile, Bernie laughed along with her. At that moment, he realized the power of comedy. Without much thought, he told his mother that he was going to be a comedian so that he would never have to see her cry again. She laughed even harder, not believing a word he said.
So once I started laughing when Bill Cosby got done, I saw the relief on my mother's face, and I told my mom, I said, "Mom, that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna be a comedian."
As young as he was, Bernie began to mimic comedians. He became cheeky, and back at school, everyone saw him as the class clown. He would deliberately give wrong answers just to make his classmates burst out laughing. This cheekiness went overboard at age 8 when he decided to imitate his grandfather one Sunday afternoon in church. While this entertained the congregation, it also landed him in big trouble, as his strict grandmother was present. He then went on to attend Chicago Vocational High School, where his free-spirited nature doubled. Many students loved him for his crazy, funny personality. However, in the midst of this, tragedy struck. In 1973, he lost his mother to breast cancer. In the following year, his older brother Daryl died from a heart attack. He would also lose his father shortly afterward. Bernie was now an orphan, and everyone sympathized with him. But Bernie was built differently. He managed to turn things around, using his misfortunes to his advantage. He made fun of himself, which took away the sympathy. He also decided to take his schoolwork seriously and managed to graduate in 1975. Bernie was now out in the world, determined to make comedy his full-time career until life took an unexpected turn. During his senior year, he met a lovely girl named Rhonda Gore and did everything he could to make her his girlfriend. He succeeded, but soon something unplanned happened. Rhonda got pregnant. Both of their families were deeply religious, and having a child out of wedlock was not accepted. So they quickly made wedding arrangements, and on September 17, 1977, they tied the knot. A few months later, Rhonda gave birth to their daughter, Janice. As someone who had been raised to take responsibility, Bernie knew he needed to step up and support his family, even if it meant putting his comedy dreams on hold. He began working as a janitor at General Motors, where he spent 5 years before being laid off due to downsizing. To ensure his family never lacked, Bernie took on a series of odd jobs. From driving delivery trucks to frying fish at a fast food restaurant, and even coaching young basketball players in the neighborhood, he did it all without hesitation. On top of these jobs, he started performing comedy on weekends at local clubs and parties. Things began to look promising until tragedy struck again. His grandmother, who had been scheduled for surgery due to diabetes complications, sadly passed away in 1986. As if that wasn't enough, the following year, his grandfather also died. At his grandfather's funeral, noticing the somber mood of the crowd, Bernie decided to lift their spirits with laughter. It was then he decided that he couldn't wait any longer to pursue his dream. Approaching 30 years old, he realized time was not on his side. Bernie resolved to follow his passion for comedy wholeheartedly. His first stop was Chicago's Cotton Club on Monday amateur nights, where he performed for a predominantly black audience. Over time, Bernie Mac began to rise in fame. At the time, he was working as a driver for the Wonder Bread Company, but he felt the job was holding him back. So he decided to quit and pursue comedy full-time. It didn't take long before he got his first big break. In 1990, he entered the Miller Lite Comedy Search, where 100 comedians performed in clubs and theaters all over Chicago. A panel of judges narrowed the field to the top 10, and Bernie was one of them. The final show took place at the Regal Theater in Chicago, hosted by the legendary Damon Wayans. Bernie delivered a stellar performance, winning the contest and taking home the $3,000 prize at age 32. He set aside a large portion of the winnings for his daughter Janice's college education. From then on, doors began to open. He performed nationwide, opening for big artists like Natalie Cole, Dionne Warwick, and even one of his main role models, Red Fox. His biggest test came in 1992 on HBO's popular stand-up show, Def Comedy Jam, known for its notoriously hostile crowd. A determined Bernie Mac knew what he was getting himself into and refused to let anyone shatter his dream. He took to the stage with fierce determination and managed to win the audience over, firmly establishing his name in the comedy world. He continued touring across the country and realized that to further penetrate the mainstream, stand-up comedy alone wasn't enough. Bernie decided to expand into acting. His career began with a role as a club doorman in the comedy Mo Money in 1992, followed by parts in Who's the Man? As a George in 1993, House Party 3 as Uncle Vester, and Above the Rim as Flip, both in 1994, and the famous Friday as Pastor Clever in 1995. Following that role, Bernie played the title role in the 1995 Apollo revival of The Wiz. His first starring role came in 1998 as Dollar Bill, a slick-talking club owner in the Players Club. Bernie took on any role he could find, but struggled to break away from the traditional black comedy genre, as his edgy humor seemed an unlikely fit for mainstream television. Now in his early 40s, He worried he might never become the star he aspired to be. However, his frequent appearances on the series Moesha as Uncle Bernie from 1996 to 1999 opened the door to his biggest opportunity, the original Kings of Comedy, featuring Steve Harvey, Cedric the Entertainer, Guy Torry, later replaced by D.L. Hewley, and Bernie Mac himself. The show became one of the most successful comedy tours of all time. Fans fell in love with Bernie, demanding more of him, and clamored for him to have his own show like the rest of his fellow comedians. Although many networks were hesitant due to his vulgar comedic style, Fox decided to take the risk. With the help of Larry Wilmore, they created The Bernie Mac Show, which ran from November 14, 2001 to April 14, 2006. The sitcom, loosely based on Bernie's own life, received praise for its fresh take on family dynamics and Bernie Mac's unique comedic perspective. It ran for 5 successful seasons, earning multiple awards, including an Emmy for Outstanding Writing for a Comedy Series. The show allowed Bernie to explore his creativity, where he devised the idea of breaking the fourth wall to explain himself directly to the audience, ensuring he wasn't taken out of context.
You and I are family. When I say I want to kill those kids, you know what I mean. I don't have to explain. Come on, Bernie Mac.
The pilot episode of the show opened doors for Bernie outside the traditional black comedy genre, landing him roles in the 2001 remake of Ocean's 11, the sequel Charlie's Angels, Full Throttle, Bad Santa, Guess Who, Pride in 2007, Soul Men, Transformers, and Madagascar, Escape to Africa. To top it off, Bernie was also an author, publishing I Ain't Scared of You in 2001 and a memoir, Maybe You Never Cry Again, in 2003.
As a stand-up comedian, are there subjects you just wouldn't joke about, you'd never go to?
I don't talk about God. I don't make fun of God.
Because?
I'm scared.
Sadly, on March 19, 2007, after a 30-year career, Bernie Mac announced that he was going to retire to focus on his personal life and enjoy some well-deserved rest. What people didn't know was that, for the final 20 years of his life, Mac had been living with an inflammatory lung disease called sarcoidosis, though he publicly stated that it was in remission. It is reported by one of his in-laws that on July 24, 2008, Bernie Mac began experiencing breathing problems and a fever. He was rushed to Northwestern Memorial Hospital, where doctors discovered that he had contracted pneumonia. They explained that the sarcoidosis had compromised his immune system, making him susceptible to infections. He had earlier been placed on new medication to further suppress his immune system, which is believed to have led to the pneumonia. Bernie was immediately put on a ventilator. Fast forward to August 7th, an official statement was released saying he was responding well to treatment and was expected to be released soon. However, on the night of August 8th, Bernie Mac went into cardiac arrest. Doctors attempted to resuscitate him twice. After the first attempt, he was revived for about an hour. Unfortunately, he went into cardiac arrest a second time, and this time he could not be saved. At around 2 a.m. on August 9th, 2008, Bernie Mac passed away at the age of 50 from cardiac arrest due to complications from pneumonia. His wife and daughter were by his side during his final moments. The world mourned the loss of this comedic legend, and numerous theories began circulating about the cause of his untimely death. Some speculated that he had been taken out by the industry, sacrificed by his enemies, or silenced before he could expose disturbing secrets. Others suggested he had been overworked, leading to a decline in his health. However, none of these theories have been substantiated. We miss him dearly, and in our hearts, he remains the true king of comedy.
I never watch what somebody else does. It does not matter. Bernie Mac got to do his thing.
His authenticity, often drawn from his own experiences, made him extraordinary. He was more than just a comedian, and we are grateful for the special gift he shared with us. Continue resting in peace, King.
What did you want to do?
To be the best
To be the best.
within myself.
Uh-huh.
I'm not in competition with anybody.